ladies and gents, welcome to the MKO Pugilism Boxing channel where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, put it on all to get all our notifications as soon as we drop new content on the channel. So without further ado, let's get into this one. Saturday gone, just a few days ago now, we had the undisputed super middleweight title fight between Canelo Alvarez, Saul Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Sweethand Plant. This was a big historical fight here because basically this is the first time ever that there's been a fight for all four of the belts in the super middleweight division. It's recently been done by Josh Taylor at 140 pounds, and you had Bernard Hopkins historically unifying Jermaine Taylor, beating him, and there's only very few in this four belt era, very few guys. I think a list of about 6 guys who have ever sort of got all the 4 straps together in any given division. So this is very uncommon. Normally guys just hold 1 belt or 2 belts or whatever, but yeah, this is because of the rules and sanctioning bodies and that, it's difficult to consolidate everything. So very big historical thing was going into this fight. And as we opened up, I want to say Caleb Plant started the fight quite well. He got on his jab straight away, threw some combinations, used some good sort of lateral movement, used his legs very well, especially sort of in the opening round. I'd say, yeah, he done pretty well. Canelo stalked him and Canelo kind of started a bit slower. So Caleb Plant, he had his little successes there in the first round. It started quite positively for me. Canelo done his normal thing, sort of stalking you, trying to cut the ring down, you know, so he was sort of following Caleb Plant around. As the fight began to progress, Plant was still in it, but you could tell that Canelo sort of began to have more and more success. I think, you know, Canelo on his way in to get Plant, he did have to take a few shots sometimes, but he was very slick, and a lot of this stuff he just took it on the gloves. And you know, the fight progressively began to take the pattern that I thought it would take, you know, with Canelo sort of putting on more and more pressure, getting a bit stronger as the fight wore on. And it became a tale of basically Canelo following Plant around, making him have to work quite hard to try and keep Canelo off him. But ultimately Plant just could not keep Canelo off of him, and Canelo began to sort of step it up bit by bit. And Plant shots were, you know, a lot of them were looking like arm punches and sort of pity pat punches, although he did land some good ones, but Canelo was just sort of overwhelming him bit by bit. I would say, however, that this was one where Canelo did have to sort of work for his victory, because Plant didn't go down easy. He was, you know, I would argue that he done maybe in a way better than Saunders and better than Smith, in the sense that, you know, he was still trying little things. He was still moving. He was still a bit lively, whereas Smith sort of seized up. You know, he sort of was just surviving there. I think Plant, there was elements of that in Plant, but with his movement and stuff, it still looked like, okay, I'm still here, I'm still want to go and whatnot. But you could just see throughout it, even as Canelo would sometimes have to take shots, he was just still coming in, using that high guard. He went to the body very effectively in this fight, did Canelo. You know, used those right hooks, and especially that left hook of his to the body is a good shot. And you know, Plant just ended up sort of taking more and more of Canelo's shots as the fight wore on. Credit to him, he showed a lot of toughness and whatnot, but ultimately it's one of those fights where, although there were periods when Plant did well and he moves well and whatnot, but he was still having to take shots off of Canelo. And you could always see that no matter what Plant did well, Canelo was always the boss in this fight. I think, you know, Canelo was, it wasn't, I wouldn't even say it was the best Canelo performance, but I would say it was it was one of those where it was a good performance. It was a gritty performance, and you know what, he just basically ground Plant down as the rounds progressed, and he began to just sort of get to him more and more and more. And throughout all the rounds, it was always a case of you know, Plant might land something, but Canelo's shots were like they had mean intentions behind them at all times, you know, and you could just see that the thudding shots, the powerful, the meaningful shots throughout this fight were always being landed by Canelo. As the fight progressed, he was always landing the more meaningful, powerful shots where you feel, you know it, you almost feel the shot as he throws it. So yeah, he just sort of began to grind Plant down. He was always, he didn't have much trouble sort of getting to Plant. I mean, I was impressed in some pockets of the fight where although overall Canelo was doing his thing, but Plant showed a few flashes where he was able to make Canelo miss sometimes, and he was showboating, but wasn't really able to capitalize on it. And you know, in the end, what happened, Canelo just ground Plant down. That the 11th round came around, and I thought, maybe this might go to points. I mean, my prediction was a late stoppage for Canelo, and that is what happened in the end. But as we got to sort of round 10 and 11, I thought maybe this might go to points. Plant might be able to survive here, but Canelo just jumped on him again in the 11th round, and you know, just stuck it on him with more shots again, hooks, uppercut. You know, it just threw it all at him, and he sent Plant just flying down to the canvas on the first knockdown. And you could tell that even when Plant got up, he was kind of stumbling all over the place, and you could tell that, right, Canelo's going to jump on him and it's going to end. And that's exactly what happens. You know, Canelo, once Plant gets up for the first knockdown in the 11th round, you know, Canelo just jumps on him again, more of his signature hooks and everything, and then Plant goes down again, and you can tell. I mean, when he went down that second time, it looked like he was definitely out of it, but he did show resilience, and he did show toughness in that he was able to sort of get up from the second knockdown by Canelo, and you know, he looked like he sort of, his instincts kicked in, his survival instincts, his fighting instincts or whatnot, gets up, and you know, the referee just looks at his condition and just waves it off. It just stops right there. And I think some people have been saying that the stoppage was a bit early, could have given him a bit more time, and I think there's definitely some merit in that. You know, maybe letting it go a bit longer. I mean, at the time of watching, I wasn't really complaining. I wasn't thinking it was an early stoppage, because I could see that he was hurt, and I think it would have just gone the same way. It would have just been another knockdown, or maybe Canelo would have just probably knocked him unconscious, I think, if it was allowed to continue, because Canelo was in the mood and he was just gonna jump on him again, sort of things. So I think that's what happens. But at the same time, as I think Chris Andre pointed in his video, that look, you know, he got up, and you know, I think he got up at the count of about 2 or 3 or something like that. So in a world championship fight, you got to give your man, you know, the ref's got to give him every chance to continue. And you know, if he was to go down again, then you stop it. And I think that's a fair point, fair argument. They could have maybe given Plant a bit more time. You know, they could have maybe allowed him to continue, since he did get up, and you know, first knockdown and second knockdown were as bad as each other. But anyway, at the same time, I think the fact that Plant didn't protest about the stoppage, the fact that he didn't complain when he was stopped by the referee, shows that, well, maybe it was the right call there, because normally with these situations, early stoppages and whatnot, you always see the boxer that gets stopped or gets stopped early or whatever, they always tend to complain to the referee or complain to the coaches, or you know, they react badly and they're like, no, I want to continue. But with this fight, Plant didn't show none of that. He didn't He didn't show any sign that he wanted to continue, that he felt it was unjust. You know, he just was humble in his defeat, and he just sort of conceded that this is enough. This is it. It's over. So and he showed respect. They showed respect to each other afterwards. And now Canelo is officially the first in history, not only the first Mexican, but the first boxer ever to actually unify the super middleweight division. All 4 belts belong to him. He had the crown on his head, so congratulations to Canelo Alvarez for unifying the super middleweight division, first ever in history. So his name definitely has got to be a Hall of Famer, and it goes down in the history books, boxing history books for sure. So let me know what you thought of the fight. And they talked about, of course, what happens next. He said he's going to take a holiday. In January is when he's going to decide what his next move is going to be. So for me personally, I think where he'll probably find the challenges is, I want to say, at light heavy. I think guys like Dimitri Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, those sort of guys are where he will probably find his ceiling and where he'll find his biggest challenges. I think there's other guys at super middle, like David Benavidez. I think he'll beat David Benavidez, but David Benavidez will give Canelo some trouble. But I think Canelo's got the skills and the know-how and the experience to beat someone like Benavidez. Some people have talked about Charlo moving up from middleweight to fight Canelo. Again, I think that will be another victory for Canelo, but it will be a good fight, entertaining fight. But for me, I think where Canelo finds his ceiling, where he finds walls, it might be a possible defeat, is the light heavyweight division for me. But let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. And until next time, it's MKO Pugilism, over and out.